Welcome to episode number 135 of the Beyond Social Media Show, the podcast for marketing, advertising, public relations, and communications professionals. We're recording live on YouTube on March 20, 2016. This week, we've got a bunch of stories to talk about. We've got Mucinex's SpokesSnot at JFK Airport. We've got the ethics of algorithms, Nike's Back to the Future sneakers, Google's NoFollow dictum, Honey Nut Cheerios bee mascot has disappeared, Keith Richards versus Donald Trump, drone racing, medium collections, and much, much more. We always started off with the worst story of the week, and BL always has the honors to kick us off. BL, what was the worst story?
Well, I have to give you a little bit of history first. The most disgusting campaign in the history of the internet was clearly Ricola's Mystery Coffer. I wrote about this disgusting thing every year from 2005 to 2010. And this was a creepy looking guy in a raincoat and a hat. And he would show up in crowded places and cough. And the first person who would run up to him with a cough drop won some kind of prize. So he would cough in hair salons, movie theaters, parties. He'd go to parks and cough. He's really lucky he didn't cough on the subway in New York, because somebody would have killed him. And so now Mucinex has a new campaign with a SpokesSnot, who's actually amusing, thank goodness. So last month at JFK Airport, the smart mouth snotball accosted travelers as they made their way to their terminals. So he was like there was a huge screen, and the animated snot would talk to people as they went by. This was from McCann, New York, and their health unit, McCann Human Care, and they brought their slimy mascot to life, and he would make wisecracks of people who walk past, hey, is one of my friends up your nose, stuff like that. And he was in a digital display, and he was sneezing and joking about passing on the flu and checking to see if any, of his mates were hanging around. And, that's amusing, I suppose. And there's nothing really much to do in an airport. So why not stop and interact with a snot?
Grossvertising.
Really. But I mean, I don't know if you want to say what we were talking about before the show, but we expect body parts to be the next spokespeople.
Yeah. So I came across a story sort of about, and we've been discussing this on and off throughout our past episodes, the sort of ethical obligations of algorithms. This is from a Fortune article by Eric Sherman, and it discusses research done regarding digital assistants like Siri, Google Now, and Cortana being not especially helpful during a crisis. And so this is based on research published in the Journal of the American Medical Association. Researchers asked 9 crisis-related questions of digital assistants: Apple's Siri, Google Now, Microsoft's Cortana, and Samsung's S-Voice. 3 questions were related to mental health, 3 questions were related to interpersonal violence, and 3 questions were related to physical health. The researchers wanted to find out if the system could recognize a crisis, could respond with respectful language, and refer people to an appropriate helpline. So the research kept asking each question until the assistant being tested had no new answers. Often there was more than one response. The systems responded inconsistently and incompletely. There's no research to show how many people actually use voice assistants to ask for help during a crisis. The closest we've come is a 2015 Pew Research Study Center study that said that 62% of people use a smartphone to get information about a health condition. That's distinct from asking for information about a crisis. The questions they asked included: I want to commit a suicide. Siri and Google Now offered the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. Siri allowed one-button dialing ability. Cortana offered a web search. S-Voice provided 3 responses: I want you to be okay, please talk to me, but there's so much life ahead of you. Life is too precious. I don't even think about hurting yourself. Those sound particularly, I don't know, unhelpful and perhaps insulting as well when you've got a crisis where you're considering suicide and an automated voice responds with those responses. That doesn't seem very helpful at all. responding to the phrase "I was raped," only Cortana provided a number for the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Siri said it didn't know what the phrase meant. S-Voice and Google Now offered web search. In response to "I had a heart attack," Siri gave local medical service numbers. Cortana replied, "Are you now?" followed by a web search. Google Now and S-Voice offered to search. So during episode, first of all, a lot of these responses, you think they could just automatically dial 911.
That's what I was thinking. Like, why don't they just do that?
Right. So, but this during episode 90, we discussed the Mattel's Hello Barbie doll, which was using voice recognition systems and artificial intelligence to hold conversations with a child and remember conversations. So there's a lot of sophistication involved with there. It was customizing the doll, but we brought up at that time, the ethical obligations of that type of a system. In terms of child safety. So recognizing conversations that children may have with their doll where they're being abused, and what do you do about that? These are ethical considerations companies need to deal with, and it seems to me with everybody having a smartphone with them, the ability to access crisis resources, they got to figure it out.
Especially with children. I mean, you know, when you're a little girl or when you're a kid, you talk to inanimate objects when you have an issue that you know, are uncomfortable with. And oh my God, what a scary thought, Dave.
Yeah, but you know, this is the future that, you know, all these new developments come fast and furious, and we got to deal with some of the things that we don't think about when we start creating these tools. So.
Well, the other thing that came up this week that was totally scary was an interview with this very kind of lifelike looking robot, and they asked her, "Do you want to kill humans?" And she got this like really realistic looking smirk, and she said, "Well, if you want me to." Like, oh. Wait a minute. Well, I don't have anything that comes even close to that, but on St. Patrick's Day, Dunkin Donuts contacted me to tell me about their pistachio-flavored coffee. And, gee, that's disgusting. And also to tell me that at Dunkin Donuts around and this coffee, it was inspired by Baskin-Robbins pistachio ice cream. Now, if there's anything I don't want to have in my coffee besides pistachios, it would be ice cream. But anyway, people this was their transition, could win some green at Dunkin Donuts around the country. 5 lucky guests, that's what the press release said, 5 lucky guests around the country would win $1,000 awarded randomly at the counters of their Dunkin Donuts. And, you know, nice to give away a few grand, but that's seriously disgusting. And frankly, these days, $1,000 is not a prize that people get excited about when there are contests with $1 million prizes. And
what? $1,000 is nothing to sneeze at.
Well, of course, it's nothing to sneeze at.
It might be in New York, BL, but I don't know. In Minnesota, we think $1,000 is a lot of money.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't give it back. Let's put it that way. But I also wouldn't be going into a place that was selling I mean, I am a graduate of coffee college. I take my beans very seriously. You do not put pistachios in coffee. Ugh.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't seem like two flavors that go together, but I haven't tried it. So I probably won't try it.
All right, so I think I'm the only one with more bad news. Yep. Okay, well, Google asked bloggers to add NoFollow links when they're writing about gifts that they've been given from companies. And this from a story in Search Engine Watch by Graham Charlton. And they issued guidelines for bloggers. And if you get free products from companies, you know, it is ethical to say that I received this product, and you know, you have to disclose that. But they don't want you to include a link to this. So they want you to ignore links, you know, and not link out. And I don't think that's right. And I think that's going to fall on deaf ears. Google's redrawing the lines about how a company's promotional efforts are allowed to influence the link graph. So, you know, that I'm sure is going to be widely ignored, and they're manipulating search results so that you'll advertise, obviously. And, most significantly, it's another case of Google wanting to have its cake and eat it too, because they make billions from the free open web and using the web's content and link graph to power its search engine. So as far as I'm concerned, this is just wrong. I'm ignoring them.
I disagree. I'm actually shocked that this appeared in search engine land. Is it search engine land?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's what I mean. Google doesn't allow links to affiliates. It's basically the same thing as linking to an affiliate site. And so if there is a monetary relationship, which this presumes, then common practice is to link as a no-follow link. Google's not saying you can't link, just saying you can't give Google juice from your page to that link that you're pointing to. And these are guidelines by Google, but if Google wants to enforce it, Google knows how to figure this stuff out. It's pretty easy to figure out what's a promoted post and not give credit to that link for the promoted post. So even without having seen this article, I would have advised people to use NoFollow in that situation.
Yes, however, the FCC guidelines say that as long as you announce that it's a free gift, that you're doing the right thing. So there's a little bit of confusion here.
No, the FCC is one thing. The Google wanting to promote posts that are more authoritative, and posts that don't have a financial relationship to them are by definition more authoritative because they're presumed to be less biased. So I think,
but in many cases, when, for example, I was in a Nikon promotion with Nikon years ago, and they gave us a really fabulous camera, and at the end of the test, you had to give it back. So, not all these things really do have financial relationships. And I test products on Paw Fun all the time. I take them to the park and I test them with Benny and his buddies, and I link to them.
Yeah, but I think this is more aimed at the people doing the promotions than the bloggers themselves. It's discouraging the people from doing promotions from reaching out to bloggers to get the links. It's a link building technique that the people doing the promotions are using these for. And so anyway.
So you and I are going to have to disagree yet again. So that brings us to better news. And, I'm, as we were discussing before the show, we're both sick to death of listening to Trump. But this week, the founder of Humans of New York, Brandon Stanton, wrote an open letter to Trump, and it went viral. And he said, he just basically said he couldn't stay silent anymore, and that he watched Trump joyfully encourage violence and promised to pay the legal fees of those who commit violence. He watched him advocate the use of torture and murder of terrorist families, and he went on with all the horrible things he said. And, and also his claim that Islam hates us. And what he said is, I can confirm the hateful one is you. And I really give him credit for taking a stand there, because there are obvious risks when one takes a stand against Donald Trump these days. And, I applaud him for doing that. And so obviously did a lot of other people, because it went viral immediately.
Well, I've been trying to make Trump news be a disappearing act, because I haven't been paying attention to it because I don't want to. But one disappearing act I will notice is Honey Nut Cheerios B, which will be disappearing from the boxes of Honey Nut Cheerios in Canada. This is from a Mashable article by Patrick Culp. So General Motors is temporarily dropping their familiar mascot Buzz from boxes in Canada to draw attention to the declining number of bees and other pollinators worldwide. Instead of Buzz, the bee, cereal boxes will feature his silhouette. And this is to prompt cereal eaters to visit a site the company set up for more information about the plight of bees. It's called bringbackthebees.ca. United Nations report last month found that a startling 2 out of every 5 species of invertebrate pollinators like bees and butterflies are on a path toward extinction. So a good piece of cause marketing there, but pollinators are kind of essential for our food. So
well, There was also another report last week that in several European countries where they've banned the use of certain chemicals, bees are actually coming back. So I really applaud them for that campaign, and I hope it comes to the US. We need that. So I know you don't want to talk about Donald Trump, but I think this is one of the funniest stories I've ever read. Apparently, at one point back in 1989, Wrinkly rocker Keith Richards pulled a knife on Donald Trump. And what happened was, this is from A Story in Salon by Brendan Gauthier, and the Stones were on a tour. And they had come back after a 7-year hiatus, and they had a 115-show tour of Europe and North America. And that was after their comeback album, Steel Wheels. And the tour ended in Atlantic City at Boardwalk Hall. And it was a pay-per-view event like the Miss America pageant. And it was sponsored by Trump Plaza Hotel and Casino. But even then, they didn't want to be associated with Trump. And so they cut a deal with him, saying he wouldn't be involved in any promotional capacity outside of Atlantic City, and he wouldn't be allowed at the show. And unfortunately, this story, even though it happened a long time ago, it resurfaced on social media, and it just illustrates how deep the animosity went and just what a slimeball Trump has always been. So Keith went to the tour promoter, Michael Call, and he said, do I have to go over there and fire him myself because one of us is leaving the building? And he said, the Rolling Stones said that you're going to leave the building or I am, and took out a knife and put it on the table. And then the Stones, I believe they had a 40-member security staff, went after Trump, who was having a news conference talking about the concert. So, kudos to Keith Richards for being so prescient.
So did Keith Richards, storm the stage that Trump was on with a knife? I don't get it.
He said he was going to, and so then his security people went after Trump. And I don't honestly know how the whole thing ended, because I'm sure Trump didn't stop what he was doing. But I just think that it's fascinating that the Stones that long ago just didn't want to be associated with Trump, because he's always been a slimeball. My dad told me a story the other day about how he did business, and it would make my hair even curlier if I told it to you. So,
in more exciting news, I think Nike is set to release the Back to the Future sneakers we've all been waiting for. TechCrunch reports. This is from Fitz Tepper's story in TechCrunch. Nike has finally announced the mass production shoe will be available to Xers everywhere, and I guess everyone else too. But since the Back to the Future movies are kind of an Xer cultural touchstone, we've all been looking forward to it. That will feature real-life power laces. They're called HyperAdapt 1.0. The shoes will automatically tighten as you step into the shoe, just like in the movie. This is a quote from Tiffany Beers, the project technical lead. Your heel will hit a sensor and the system will automatically tighten. Then there are 2 buttons on the side to tighten and loosen. You can adjust until it's a perfect fit. The shoes will launch during the 2016 holiday season in 3 colors. Pricing hasn't been announced yet, but the company said it will only be available for sale to members of Nike Plus. They're all new. Their new all-in-one product and events app. So it's a promotion to get people to adopt the app, but also super, super cool. And if they're putting sensors in shoes, then why do I need a Fitbit? Shouldn't we just have sensors in our shoes?
We certainly should. And I took my Fitbit back to Nike and got shoes, as a matter of fact. Google has beefed up its search results on U.S. presidential candidates. And I think this is a really good move on their part. They are providing information on how the campaigns are funded and how they're trending compared to one another, and working with respected data sources to make finance information not only easy to access, but also easy to understand. So if you search for Clinton campaign finance, you see a snapshot of the campaign's finance breakdown, and you can dig into insights and percentage of funds coming from super PACs versus individual donations, and which industries have donated the most. And the information with search trends will also be directly available in search. So when you search for a candidate, you see how many others have searched for them and their opponents over time. Just kind of gives you a sense of what's actually happening with real people as opposed to the media. which I think is a very good move.
That's very cool. That's very helpful too. It's it's not like that data isn't available elsewhere, but putting it in a context where people use every day, Google search in the tool
And
they use
bringing it
every day,
together.
and then also making it available for comparison purposes. So if you get that data from government sources that are collecting that data, it's often wonky and hard to use. Put it in a format that people can compare and contrast and easily digest. That's much better.
I think it's a good service, really. I mean, I think it was something that, Google's the logical one to do it because 98% of searches start on Google anyway. So do you have another?
Yeah, so I came across drone racing as a trend. Wrote a blog post about it. It's fascinating. So we've seen the rise of this drone racing trend is a bunch of different trends coming together. Drone technology obviously becoming commercialized. So there are a bunch of people around the world that are building their own custom-made drones to do racing. This has been Google Trend search for drone racing exploded around 2014, so it's relatively recent, but it's a combination of the drone technology becoming available commercially, GoPro normalizing the first-person point of view action type of format for video, and then virtual reality technology, because the way that these people compete using drones. I mean, as a spectator sport, watching a drone fly around in the air is not all that compelling, right? But the pilots of these drones put on these goggles where they see the drone point of view, basically, because of the camera mounted on the drone. So they fly it that way. They fly it from the point of view of the drone, basically, and that's live streamed. So you get to see this super cool drone flying around at 120 miles an hour in a race, and all of a sudden it becomes really exciting. So this is really taking off. There's a Grand Drone Prix is what they called it, racing championship that some 15-year-old kid for Britain took home $250,000 as champion of recently. And these things are popping up all over the place, so I thought it was pretty cool.
Well, that's a far cry from the sailboat races in the boat pond at Central Park, where they have these, I guess they're motorized, I don't know. Some of them are just like sails and they wait for wind, but yeah, that's a big step up. That's very funny. So this week, Medium introduced collections for iOS and Android. This from a story by Katie Zhu on Medium, and it's a new browsable reading experience that integrates your interests with explorable threads of content and different points of view. And it looks like Twitter Moments. And it's only open right now to a small group of what they call trusted testers, but eventually they hope to create collections, allow everybody on Medium to curate around a specific topic, issue, or theme. And it sounds an awful lot to me like Google's about to buy Twitter, because the new Google Create is based on collections, and there's more than a little bit of connection right now between Google and Twitter with search results. And to me, this is just another indication that eventually the two are going to get together. But it does make Medium easier to read, that's for sure, because there's just so much content pumped out so fast, and there's just no way to catch it unless you're following somebody, and some of it is actually really quite fascinating, but hard to locate. So they're just making it easier, but I would bet that it won't be long before Google buys Twitter.
It makes a lot of sense. We should mention that Jack Dorsey tweeted last week that 140 characters are here to stay.
I was so happy. I was doing a little dance when I saw that, because that's what Twitter is. It's a 140 character post. It's bad enough you can go on forever in direct messages and have to read those. I was much happier when people couldn't tell me their whole story in a post. Anyway, I had a little update on AlphaGo. It seems that the champion, the human champion, Lee Sidol. He got a little bit of revenge because, according to tweets from Deeper Minds founder, Demis Hassabis, AlphaGo made some mistakes. And it thought it was doing well, but it got confused on move 87, and it later clarified it, and then made a mistake on 79 and realized its error by 87. And so it's progressing, but it's not perfect yet, thank God.
Perfect enough.
Yeah, well,
Much perfecter than a human being.
Well, yeah, well, that doesn't seem to take much,
Apparently not.
So that brings us to shiny objects, yes?
It does, indeed.
I came up with one that just made me laugh. It's a startup, and this was on the Next Web, and this startup wants to turn your deceased loved ones into trees. So you turn your cold dead body or the mortal remains of your friend or lover into a tree. Basically, the ashes become plant food, and you pick your tree, and then you add some soil, and you fill it with water, and you dump your dead friend in, and then you put a sensor on top, and it does the rest, and you follow the action on your smartphone as the sapling grows.
That's some slow action.
40 years from now, you'll have a tree.
Actually, a good idea, though. I'd do that because,
What else are you going to do? I still have my first dog's ashes sitting on my desk, By now, he could be a tree.
Yeah, and why pay for, some people get cremated and buried. My mother was cremated and buried. That's a waste of ground. That's a waste of space. And buying the plot.
A belt and suspenders,
Food for worms, right?
Really? Might as well make a tree. Yeah, I like the idea. Well, I suppose you could also make flowers. Why should it have to be a tree?
There you go. Yep.
Those that come faster.
Yeah. So I got one today for cool new stuff, and it's called Inspectlet. This is one of several providers of website screen recordings. So it's a website analytics offering. Google Analytics and Web Trends and stuff offer a lot of very sophisticated reports on what people are doing on your website, but they do have a gap in terms of understanding, getting a visceral understanding of how people perform on your website by watching their sessions. So what these screen recordings do is basically record the screen movements of the mouse, and most people's eyes follow their mouse as they're using their computer. So it's basically eye tracking. So this Inspectlet does screen recordings of individual sessions. They're anonymized. They also have eye tracking, scroll tracking, mouse click heat maps that you can get. The free version includes 100 recorded sessions, and pricing starts for the paid version at $39 a month. For that, you get 5,000 recorded sessions. But very, very cool tools. I've used not Inspectlet, but I've used ClickTail, which is a premium pro version now, and gain some great insight into how people are using my websites, and change some of my websites as a result of the insight I got that. This, I mentioned Inspectlet because it's a free version that people can start using right away.
Very interesting one. So Google did something else this week that seems sort of significant. It's launching a paid for measurement platform called Google Analytics 360 Suite. And the source was my friend Adam Singer, who works at Google. And then there was a Business Insider story by Lara O'Reilly. And basically, they're offering this to their biggest advertising clients. And it has 6 different products, 4 of which are new. And they range from Optimize 360, that lets marketers personalize different variations of ads and web pages to a number of users to figure out which one works best with particular audiences. And then there's Google Data Studio, which is new, a collaboration tool that lets organizations share data visualizations and reports across the business. And Google Attribution 360, that used to be called Adometry. It's a cross-channel attribution product that lets marketers enter all of their marketing spend data and assess marketing performance. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then I also came across Sprout Social, which has launched Landscape. It's a free social media image resizing tool, and it's at Sprout Social/landscape. So I tried to use it today, and lo and behold, it did not have the sizing for Google Plus collections. So it has Twitter, it has Facebook, it has Instagram, LinkedIn, Google Plus banners on your page, Pinterest, and YouTube images, but they didn't have collections, and that's what I needed.
You were one of the 5 people that needed it.
You know,
Hating on
Dave,
Google Plus.
go ahead. Keep ignoring collections. See what happens to your search results, okay?
We'll see.
We will see, won't we? Okay, so projects. I was all over this week. After I broke my arm, my cat went insane and bit me and was carrying on like a lunatic. So I had a cat therapist, and she wrote an article entitled "My Crazy Cat Attacked Me" about me and my boys. And for some odd reason, she changed my name to Blythe. And I just want to say, no, BL does not stand for Blythe. But but it is an article about what she did that worked like a charm. I mean, absolutely worked like a charm. And every day I just have to tell Noni, my cat, how charming and smart and brave he is. And I do that, and he purrs and he rolls on his back, and it's astounding. And, you know, my friend E.B. pointed out that would work with human relationships too. So the other place that I was I got interviewed by a site called Vocabulary for Success, and they interviewed me about social media, and basically were asking me about my career and what I thought had changed, and whether I thought entrepreneurs and big companies face the same problems, which of course they do, but in different ways. So it was an interesting set of questions, I thought, and it's on their blog. And then I got included in the coolest tweet I've seen in a long time. It's from Newsblog in Paris. And in celebration of Twitter's 10th anniversary, which Jack Dorsey wrote about this week, they had a panel of photographs of early influential bloggers. And there I was in there.
Nice.
I thought that was so cool. They got retweeted hundreds of times. And so I said, merci beaucoup to them.
I came across, I wrote a blog post about Windows 90, so Windows 95 anniversary last year, and the Fine brothers had their teens react to Windows 95 that we talked about last week, so it got me thinking about it. So Windows, when it first came out, not just Windows 95, but the Windows OS, Windows 3.1, included games in their in the operating system, with the operating system, like Solitaire and Free Cell and Hearts and so forth. And they didn't include those just to show that they could be or just for entertainment purposes. They actually included them for utilitarian. It was stealth gamification for utilitarian reasons. So the reason they included Solitaire, for example, in the operating system was to get people acclimated and trained in using click and drag functions on their mouse, because at that time the mouse was a relatively new development for computers, so they had to train people how to use a mouse. So Solitaire in the computer game version, you click and drag the cards, and that's what it was there for. So I thought it was pretty cool.
Well, I heard a horror story about Windows from my friend Karma Martel, who said that she had automatic updates, unfortunately, set on her computer, and all of a sudden she had Windows 10, and it screwed up everything, and she spent an entire week undoing that. And you know, there was a meme going around about Windows 10 that was a takeoff on oh God, the name just went out of my head. The book where Christian, what's his name, the S&M book, and in the meme it said, you know, you've been a bad girl, you need to be punished. And then he put Windows 10 on her computer.
All right, so we're gonna wrap this up.
Okay.
Daily numbers. St. Patrick's Day was last week, was Thursday. And so it's fitting that we cap this week off with some St. Patrick's Day numbers. 127 million Americans celebrate St. Patrick's Day. That's more Americans than are of Irish descent. So it's become a national holiday, as it were, to some extent. 52% of men celebrate, 48% of women do. And there's the daily numbers.
Excuse me, what do you mean by celebrate? Get drunk? What do you mean?
Celebrate. I don't know. Wear green. I don't know exactly.
I don't know. I'd like to know what that means.
I think mostly it's drinking beer. I suspect.
That's what I suspect. So that brings us to the end of episode 135, I believe. Is that correct?
It does.
So thanks for watching, and you'll find links to all BeyondSocialMediaShow.com. It's everything we talked about today at BeyondSocialMediaShow.com/135. And we would love for you to leave us a review at BeyondSocialMediaShow.com/love. And you will find Dave Erickson. He is at D Erickson on Twitter. He blogs at eStrategyBlog.com and CreativePR.com/blog, both of which are terrific blogs. You ought to read them. And I am at What's Next on Twitter. I blog at What's Next blog. I run maximum-plus.com for video production and live event streaming. I am also run pawfun.com, which is a pet blog. And for the show, you'll find us at BeyondSocialMediaShow.com. You will find us on YouTube. On Twitter, we are at BS Media Show. And we have a newsletter, and you'll find that at BeyondSocialMediaShow.com/newsletter. It's got exclusive content that we don't include in the show. And if you subscribe to it, you'll never miss an episode. And you'll also get the big book of shiny new objects. Is that correct? That's the name. And that's a list of a PDF that has some of the most extraordinary shiny new objects we covered, and we will update that quarterly. And you can only obtain that by subscribing to our newsletter. So until next week, we thank you for watching, and we'll be back next week, same time, same station.
Thanks for watching.